So this carving is probably the most simple carving you could actually do. You only need one burr to do it, and you can see here I've done some other ones, a wolf and an eagle, and they're actually Pictus designs that I just got off the internet. And these ones are a little bit more complicated, so don't start with these ones if you're beginning. And they were supplied by Mark Anthony, those ones. They're a bit more Celtic in style, you would say. That's one of my designs, the dragon, and also that on there. So you can put the designs on anything you kind of want. These are kind of, I guess, relief carvings. So I'm going to put this little flower right here, and oh, that's good. That's good video of the back of my hand. But essentially what I'm doing here is I'm just sanding the table so I've got a nice smooth surface to work on. So I've just printed off this very simple flower from the internet, and I always like to tape it onto the table, and that way it doesn't move. So when you put the carbon paper underneath it, it doesn't move and you get the lines all in the right place. So essentially what you do is you go over the lines. With the carbon paper, always have the shiny side downwards. And you can always check whether you've got all the lines just by having a look under the carbon paper. Look, I haven't got the circle in the middle, so then I can easily put the picture back and do the circle without worrying that it's moved because of the tape that's on there. So there we go, and we have started carving. So essentially you want to see my hands there. I'm really bracing the Dremel with both hands. Okay, so the rotation of the Dremel is going, I guess it's clockwise, and so you want to actually go with the Dremel here. So don't go like this, which is, I guess, right to left. Go left to right, if that makes more sense. So I'm sort of going with the rotation of the Dremel. Now this doesn't work with all kinds of carvings. Sometimes it gets a little bit dangerous to do this if it's with a more extreme kind of burr that could grab. So with these kind of burrs, the cutter burr, the small one, and also the other one that I'm using, which is a diamond point burr, which is really nice for doing these kind of carvings. But if you don't have any of these ones, and you could just try out what you've got, probably the most essential thing is that it's small enough to sort of like act like a pen. I would go for sort of like something with a ball on the end. And this wood that I'm carving into is actually quite soft, so it only really needs a very light touch. So I'm just, essentially I've done the carving just in that short period of time. So I have edited it, but it's probably taken me about 5 minutes to do this carving. But what I want to do now is I want to sort of like make the carving stand out. So I'm going to put a background in, and you've seen me put this background in before. Essentially it is those sort of like checkerboard patterns that you can sort of see in the right bottom hand corner. And I'm just sort of keeping things sort of on my table a little bit uniform, I guess you'd say. You can choose any pattern that you want to do. So I just sort of like put in a few pencil marks to go by, like in a checkerboard kind of fashion. And then I'll just go one way with that kind of mushroom burr, and then the other way. I don't sort of worry too much about it being exact on how many lines are in each one or anything like that. Really it's there just so it holds the black wax that I'll put in later, and so that will darken up the background. Okay, so once you've finished that, I always give it a light sand, and I've used, I think this is about 220. You could use 340 or 20 or whatever it is. But you don't want to sand it too hard, else otherwise you're going to sand your carving away. And what I'm going to do with the flower, I'm going to use this wood dye. You could just use paint that you've got. You could water it down depending on what kind of look you want to go for. So you've got to watch out for this wood dye, especially in this soft wood, because it tends to sort of like drift into the other parts. So I'm quite happy with it drifting into that channel because that's going to be covered in the wax. Okay, so I'm using a dark oak wax from Liberon. I think that's how you say it. And what it is virtually is a polishing wax with a dark component in there, so it will darken up the background, but also it will actually polish up to quite a shine on there if you wanted it to. So it protects the wood as well. So I put it in with a brush and try and work it into the little sort of like divots, I guess you would call them, or little parts that you've carved. So there I go, and I'm just probably going to do the other part of the carving there. And you can sort of see, if you go sort of like close up, I'm trying to work it into the lines of the carving, because that's what makes it, those lines really stick out, is that black wax. Okay, so there's quite a lot of excess there, so I just want to take the excess off with a paper towel, and I just go quite lightly over it. I don't want to sort of like take any of the wax out from the lower points. And so what I'll do then is I'll just allow that to dry, which I think I left it for a couple of hours. Then I came back and I just polished it up, and you can really polish it to a real high shine if you wanted to, but I'm not really into that today. So here we go, the finished product. There you go. It's a very simple carving, but it's very effective, and those pix ones, the wolf and all, they look really cool. So don't underestimate these kind of carvings, especially when you're a beginner. You can sort of like learn a lot from these carvings. So the next carving we're going to do is really cool. I'm doing that flower again, but I'm going to put some depth into it. And once I've edited that video, it will appear on the right there. So that won't be too far off. And if you could hit that like and subscribe, that would be awesome. And I will see you next time.